Hello! Another episode of the Gaming Dadcast. Welcome back. We are at it again. Today we're talking about GameStop, and I have a GameStop story. I have multiple stories for you. And then we're going to be talking about being around versus actively being there. A Minecraft story. Minecraft time. So, let's get to it, yeah? A part-time job I picked up while I first attended university here in Southern California was, well, I was pretty stoked for it initially. I applied to a nearby GameStop and interviewed later that same day. After the interview, it took about 3 hours for them to call me back and offer the job. Looking back, I can clearly see they were desperate and needed a body to fill the space. But at the time, I thought I was pretty indispensable. I mean, I got that job so quickly, I thought they were just overtaken by my charm. To be young again. I started working the next day and quickly got acclimated to the position. There was one other newly hired employee, a woman younger than me who was great to work alongside with. As we learned more and more about the new jobs we had gotten, I started to realize that it wasn't all I had imagined it would be. From shady business practices to nasty situations, there was a lot that happened that that culminated into, very memorable but ultimately horrible experiences. This is my GameStop story. Before going any further with this story, I want to give some background into the one previous job I had before taking the GameStop job. I lived in Humboldt County, as I've mentioned many times before, and my first job was at a True Value hardware store. Looking back, I can honestly say that if I was able to make more money there, I would have stayed. I loved my coworkers. I was able to keep the job at the workplace and not bring it home. There was room to grow and do more complex things within the company. And I got to chat with very unique customers almost every day. This was my entry job into my working career, and I thought this was the baseline. Boy, was I wrong. Fast forward to after I graduated from junior college and moved to Southern California, then got my job at a nearby GameStop. Us newbies first learned what our general duties would be: cleaning the carpets and countertops, wiping off the game cases, sorting all the game cases out on the floor, as well as behind the register. Then we would do general organization and, of course, help any customers that came in. We were told to be proactive in helping people when they came in, but to not be too pushy. Fine by me. Cashier duties would come later on, so we were told to just focus on those first tasks. At first, I loved this. It was mindless work, and I'm a bit OCD when it comes to keeping things clean, so I fell right into line with doing these tasks. I'm also a talker. Big surprise. So chatting with people didn't come very hard to me. My fellow newbie coworker was a bit more shy when we first started talking, so a bit more shy when talking to customers. So I made sure to do all the talking for the both of us until she got more comfortable. For about a month, it was actually pretty great. I would go to school throughout the day and then take a little drive down the road to my job. What was even better is they gave me closing shifts since I would come in way later in the day. So the last hour or two of work was closing and cleanup. I really liked that work time. So what could go wrong? Well, I had 3 managers I reported to. One manager, let's call her Rosa, was the team manager, while the other 2, let's call them Jen and John, were effectively assistant managers. Now, this sounds somewhat normal, but where the confusion entered was that many instances only had one manager there for the day or shift. So whoever was in that day was the main manager, and anything they said went. Did I mention they all had different ways of doing things? No? Well, I did. So both of us newbies had to learn 3 different ways of doing things in the store and remember which manager liked which process. It sucked. But we helped each other out. Us new hires had to look out for each other, right? So finally, after about 2 months or so, we had the processes down for each manager. We enjoyed the managers themselves, they were all pretty cool. The problem was, if they ever were scheduled to work the same days or shifts, in instances where, like special events might be taking place, it was rough. They worked well enough with each other, but looking back on it all, they really didn't like each other. Trash talking the other managers was a regular thing when they weren't around or by themselves. And I'm not sure if my newbie coworker experienced the same things I did, but they definitely liked the trash talk on the other managers when it was just them and me. I would just nod my head and not say a word. And it was awkward, to say the least. But they always kept it formal when it mattered. When the store was open and they were scheduled together. So I didn't pay too much attention. I didn't let it get too much to me. Then cashier duty came. Once we experienced enough and had proven we could handle the job, we were trained on cashier duty. I thought, I just ring people out for their games. This will be great because I'm the last stop before they get to go enjoy their game. What could go wrong? Again, to be young. People were often cranky and, to be frank, disgusting. I know that sounds harsh, but it is 100% true. Anyway, that actually isn't what really turned me off to cashier duty. It was the employee incentives that ruined it. We had things that were made very clear they weren't required, but there was a heavy emphasis on them that they actually were required. Subscriptions to GameStop services like magazines or higher level accounts that cost money. They were like commissions for employees. Now, if that was all they were, then that would be great. You try to sell customers on the services while they check out, and if you happen to get some, you get a little kickback. Okay, cool. That would have been great, and I probably would have been more than happy to try to sell the stuff. But what was hidden in the fine print was that there were quotas that needed to be met each month. Each manager was required to get a specific amount, not grouped, each. And the store had to bring in certain totals of subs and account upgrades each month. This, in turn, forced the managers to put a heavy reliance on us, the floor employees. Having those conversations with the cranky people at the registers always sucked. Very rarely did someone respond with, "Oh, wow, please tell me more. I can go ahead and wait. You tell me more how I can spend my money here." It didn't help that the pricing was a bit overpriced for the services too. It was horrible. And there's just a constant rain cloud that hung over my head, reminding me I needed to get people to sign up for the stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said a thing. Sure, it wasn't required, but it definitely was, while the upper management winked. That wasn't the final straw, though. There was a specific instance where I made the decision that I would stop working at GameStop. And it revolved around used games. GameStop would buy back games, which in theory sounds fantastic. I don't know if they still do that, to be honest. Get a game, have fun with it, sell it back to use that money to buy another. Of course, I never thought the full price would be used to buy back games, right? You wouldn't get the full price back, but geez, it was criminal what they were doing. I kid you not, one night, a young guy came in with a stack of games as big as me. There was a ton of newer games, too. So they should have been worth more because they were newer. For this entire stack of games, the guy was going to get a whopping about $15 back. That's it. Nothing more. If he did in-store credit, so it could only be used at a GameStop, He could have gotten $20. He shrugged, obviously defeated, and took the offer. I was the one who rang him up, and it made me a bit sick. He left the store without buying anything, so he obviously needed the cash. Once it was finished, it was time to close the store. So I began bringing in each game into our system and marking them. I was already feeling bad about the transaction, but what was the final straw was the process in putting the games back out on the shelves to sell as used games. I was told to do a quick clean off of the discs, not in depth, not some crazy process, and do a quick run through if the discs had scratches. If they did, minimal work was done to fix them. I ran them through a weird disc fixing machine only once, and it rarely worked, if I'm honest. Then I'd put the cases out on the floor. These games, many of which were just bought for pennies, would then be resold at $15, $20, $25, or more. That night, my conscience was yelling at me, and I put my notice in the next day. I couldn't do it. You want to talk about capitalism being bad? That store encapsulated it. It wasn't the actual people running the store and dealing with the things. No, it was much deeper. Something I couldn't just write out and hope to change. GameStop showed me that jobs aren't always good, and in many cases are outright bad. It really stung because I was so stoked when I first started, and that first month was pretty awesome. But to end this story on a lighter note, I'll recall two better stories, we'll call them. My first story was about a shoplifter. What made this whole interaction so funny was that no games were kept in the cases on the floor. They were put into sleeves and stored in the drawers behind the cash register, and then they were also locked up at the time, so that they couldn't get to the actual games. I watched this guy come in, go straight over to a wall, and grabbed a couple games to put in his I watched him put them in his jacket. I almost didn't confront him, but thought that we needed the cases, at least. That would just be sad for people coming to get them. I walked over and asked him politely to put the cases back on the wall. He denied my accusation with such gusto, I almost laughed. But he swore, I didn't have anything, what are you talking about? After trying to convince him to do the right thing for a few minutes and be nice, I finally broke the news to him. Sir, there aren't even games in those cases that are in your jacket. They are literally out here for show, and the games are locked up somewhere else. He looked at me with such a baffled look. I could only describe it being like a dog with their head tilted to the side and their ears perk up. He opened up his jacket, quickly looked inside, and tried to still deny he took them. Like, oh, how'd they get there? I didn't care at this point, so I just nodded and moved him along. He left the store. I never saw him again. So that was fun. My other story is way more gross. One day, while I was putting games away in drawers behind the register, next to the register, Rosa had cashier duty, the team manager. She was standing next to me while I crouched down to put the games away. She started kicking me in the arm, and I looked up, and I asked, I yelled quietly, "What?" She looked over a direction in the store. So I leaned up and peeked over. There was a girl who had come in clearly wearing a thong, and to put it nicely, should not have been wearing the outfit that she was wearing. But that aside, what was gross about this was not that at all. She took her right hand and dug it so deep into her butt crack, I thought she may have lost her hand. I'm not sure if she was pulling her undies out or if she's trying to scratch a deep itch. I don't know, don't care. But her hand was lost in her pants for a good 10 to 15 seconds. I plopped back down next to Rosa, and Rosa couldn't help but chuckle while she wrung out customers. About 2 minutes later, Rosa suddenly looks over and says, "Hey, Mike, can you run the register for a little bit? I have to go do something in the back." Manager, okay, fine. I got up, moved to the register, get my stuff ready. And just as I looked up, a customer walked up to the counter to be rung out. Guess who it was? It was Thong Girl. and she had 3 games in her right hand. She put them on a counter and sweetly said, "I'd like these, please." I had to hold these cases to scan them and put them in the bag. And Rosa freaking knew it. Admittedly, it was a great play on her end, but it still sucked. And I had to touch that thing, and she left, that girl left the store. Anyway, that was my time at GameStop. There were really good times sprinkled throughout, and the first month was great. But ultimately, it sucked. It taught me that jobs can be bad. So, watch for the signs. And maybe don't work for GameStop? So, today's topic. Something you cannot describe, but rather it just shows on your face, is that parenting is hard. It just is. But the thing that keeps parents going is the reward of seeing this little human being not only start to do the things you like, but do them better than you, or do things you don't like. It's weird, but also incredibly satisfying in a way that words can't describe. Now, I'm sure some of you listening aren't parents, or perhaps we're on the bad end of having a bad parent. I'm not arrogant or stupid enough to think everyone's family life is great and fits this mold I'm about to speak of. I mean, my parents were divorced when I was 8, and I had to choose who to live with. I was given that choice. My mother passed away when I was 12. I didn't have a good relationship with my father until I moved out of the house and was away from him. Heck, even in recent years, I've discovered more stuff that I didn't know about as a kid. No family's perfect, and parents definitely aren't. That's my biggest fear as a dad. That I will fail my kids in such a way that they won't want anything to do with me. There are 2 things that I've found to be so important in any family dynamic. And those are communication, really proper communication, not niceties or surface level talk, like real talk, and being actively there. Well, what do I mean? Well, let me see if I can try to explain with, you guessed it, video games. When you become a parent, your training begins. You don't get trained before. What training, you ask? The training to do things you don't really want to do. Cleaning up puke after your kid had a rough night, changing a poopy diaper, having serious talks about why you can't walk outside naked because you did it at home when you were younger. Being a parent is wild, and almost on a daily basis throws new experiences at you. Some of these experiences are great. The first time your kid walks, when they start talking fluently, when they develop their own sense of humor, that was so cool for me. When they finish their first game, when they experience new things themselves. These things are fantastic and are what keep driving parents, or at least they drive us. But with those great things, there are those events that are, well, they're just not very good. Some of those things we've discussed in previous episodes of the podcast. Some of those things reflect back on you, the parent, and how you need to do better. I always need to do better. As Kratos tells his son Atreus constantly in the newer God of War games, which are freaking fantastic, by the way. But Kratos tells Atreus, don't be sorry, be better. Parents learn to do the things they don't want to do because they love their kids more than they dislike the thing that they're about to do. It's as simple as that. Maybe you listening right now are thinking of someone in your life who you love like that. Maybe not a parent-child relationship, but it could be a parent, significant other, or some other situation. It's the same concept. Love trumps all. So it really puts it into perspective when your kid wants to, say, play a game with you or have you watch while they play, and you have no desire to do either because the game itself, it makes it seem so trivial, yet it's still something I have to remind myself constantly why I would do it. Another thing that begins to happen for any parent who is actively in their child's life in some way is you begin to take interest in what interests them. Something my father never really did was spend time with me doing things he didn't care about that I did. He didn't care about video games. He let me do that by myself. He didn't care about movies, shows, or cartoons. He just let me enjoy those things by myself. I was into so many things that he didn't care for, so I ended up taking interest in the things he was interested in, just to talk, mainly cars. He loved to race and loved watching races. He would go all around and drag me along to go to various tracks and watch races. I really do enjoy cars. I love off-roading. I love motor vehicle stuff. That's great. And I really especially like, quads, four-wheelers, things like that. But we spent time together doing just the things he cared about. I do not want to do the same thing with my kids. To be clear, I do think having them enjoy their own things separate from me is healthy and good. Also, I think that sometimes they need to meet me where I am instead of the other way around. It's a two-way road, right? But the default is, or should be, to meet my kids where they are. They're into these weird cartoon shows. Okay, let's watch. They like this game I don't care about. Okay, well, let's play it for a bit. You want to have a play fight? Okay, well, let's do this for a little bit. I think it is so important that they know their opinion matters to me, their dad, and their mom, and that they are validated in the things they enjoy. Sure, if there's something they shouldn't be part of, that gets cut off immediately. This is more entertainment focused. On the flip side of this, I do have them come with me and do things they normally wouldn't care about, just to show them, like I said, it's a two-way street. Yes, I meet them where they are by default, but as they get older, they need to take others into consideration too. Some games they take interest in while I play, so I explain or have them try it. Even if they ultimately leave and don't care, I make sure to open myself up to it. Again, it's a two-way street, and it's kind of like communication, real talk, not just like, hey, how was your day? Okay, bye. What's cool about all this is that it doesn't just apply to parents. Uncles, aunts, siblings, this can be applied to people in so many different parts of life, part of family, friends, whatever. This view of doing things for those that you love can be widely applied and very rewarding to both the one sacrificing their time and the one who is reaping the benefits from that sacrifice. Just being around makes a huge, huge difference. Now, again, this is what I've seen. This isn't like a rule. Every family's different. Every person's different. So let me clarify. I believe there's a big difference between being there and being there. Both can be good, but the latter, with my super heavy emphasis while speaking, is more important, in my opinion. Sure, you can be in the same room as your kids while they play or watch their own thing. In our house, we say things like, hey, why don't we all do our own things for a bit? This is fine, as having someone just near you does make a difference, if you just are in the same room. That's fine. That's good. That's a good thing. However, being actively a part of what interests my kids is what I think is most important, and where, in all honesty, I struggle the most. Jumping into that and making sure that, I'm part of it, not just there. A perfect example of this is Minecraft. My youngest son, Ben, loves Minecraft. My older son was into it for a time and likes it okay now, but Ben adores the game and easily knows way more about the game than I ever will. If I'm speaking frankly, I find the game boring and uninteresting, but that is just me. I do love watching him build these crazy buildings, hide and seek areas, racetracks, and so much more. He just goes crazy. But enjoying the things he makes isn't enough. So I try to remind myself constantly that when he wants to play Minecraft, I should probably do it. We will hop in, build some things together. He'll show me something he's created, and maybe we play a game in his world. Doesn't have to be for too long, but I have to make that effort. It's important for him to know I care enough about him to meet him where he is and really play this game with him. I'm far from perfect, though. My wife has called me out before, stating, look, he just wants to play Minecraft with someone, and he's wanting you to be that person. She's 100% right. And though it's something I don't care to do, whether because I'm tired, having other things to do, or I just want to do something else, let me tell you, almost every time I end up playing Minecraft with him, it is very rewarding to see how his attitude and body language just completely change. It's totally worth it. And again, this can apply to more than just, parent-child relationship. If somebody sees that you're willing to go that extra distance, it changes the dynamic there. Ultimately, I want to be more than my father was to me. I hope that my kids are more than me as well. I want to be there with my kids, right in the middle of things that they are truly interested in. The passing fads they go through, those are a different story. But others, usually revolving around video games, those I need to be actively there with them. Take an interest. Playing games like Minecraft or Multiverses, helping to set them up to do those things they care about. Right now, it's my singing monsters and just taking an interest in that. These are things my dad never did with me, and I want to make sure I do them with my kids, and they know I care, and I am interested in these things they find cool. What's cool with this concept is that if you take it and pivot it to, say, someone who likes games you don't like at all, just generally speaking, it works wonders. I've learned that my tastes are not everybody's tastes in games. And this is in large part thanks to my kids, and they don't even know it. Making the effort to meet someone where they are can be a sacrifice, sure, and it can suck. But man, it can be really rewarding as well. Try to remember that the next time a friend or family member wants to play a game with you or something you don't really care for. That's it for today. As always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging around this long. I appreciate you for doing that. Did you ever work at GameStop? Or maybe you have some crazy stories of a first-time job or your first job or a job or maybe your current job? Do you have any crazy work stories, anything game related? And maybe there's somebody that you're thinking of that like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I should do a little bit more, being around them, right? I'm not perfect. If this is a call out, this is as much a call out for me as well. But it's just me just talking about these things just to get it out there, right? Keep myself accountable. As always, I appreciate you. And until next time, see ya.